We're live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. Coming up in the next hour. Israel approves minimal fuel entry increase for Gaza as it slams UN chief for invoking rare Article 99 of UN Charter. Ukraine and Israel aid bill blocked in the US Senate as Republicans demand tougher border control measures. Las Vegas campus shooting leaves 3 dead, 1 in critical condition. Bloodshed ends with suspect's own death. And in sports, India squares off with Spain in FIH Men's Hockey Junior World Cup 2023. Well, on to the details now. Amidst the escalating tension in Israel-Hamas conflict, Israel Netanyahu approved a minimal fuel entry increase for Gaza Strip. Israel Political Security Cabinet gave the green light to the decision as it was aimed to prevent a humanitarian collapse and the outbreak of disease in the enclave south. In a statement issued by Israeli Prime Minister's office, the amount of fuel would be determined by the cabinet and adjusted based on the local humanitarian situation. The decision to allow fuel into the Gaza Strip is conditional on the Red Cross being granted access to Israeli captives held by Hamas in Gaza. While US Senate blocked a bill that would have provided security assistance for both Ukraine and Israel on Wednesday, the bill was to provide about $50 billion in new security assistance for Ukraine, as well as money for humanitarian and economic aid for the government in Kyiv, plus $14 billion for Israel to combat Hamas in Gaza. As 49 votes were in favor and 51 against, it fell short of the 60 votes needed in the 100-member Senate to pave the way to start the debate, threatening President Joe Biden's push to provide new aid before the end of 2023. Republicans also pressed their demands for tougher measures to control immigration at the U.S. border with Mexico. And Israeli forces also shared a video on Wednesday where they can be seen retrieving RPG missiles, anti-tank missiles, explosive devices, long-range missiles, grenades and UAVs. The forces claimed that the ammunitions are stored in school and a medical facility in Gaza by Hamas to use for terrorism. Meanwhile, Israeli Foreign Minister Eli Cohen has said UN Chief Antonio Guterres' tenure was a danger to world peace after he invoked a rare procedure with the Security Council over the Gaza war. He said, and I quote, "Guterres' tenure is a danger to world peace. His request to activate Article 99 and the call for a ceasefire in Gaza constitutes support of the Hamas terrorist organization," unquote. Well, as we told you in a rare move, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres on Wednesday invoked Article 99 of the UN Charter and formally warned the Security Council of a global threat from the Gaza war. And taking to X, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres wrote, and I quote, "I've just invoked Article 99 of the UN Charter for the first time in my tenure as Secretary General. Facing a severe risk of collapse of the humanitarian system in Gaza, I urge the Council to help avert a humanitarian catastrophe and appeal for a humanitarian ceasefire to be declared," unquote. In his 2-page letter, Guterres told the Council UN letter that the Gaza war may aggravate existing threats to international peace and security. He also highlighted that more than 1,200 brutally killed by militants on 7th October, including 33 children and the 130 people still being held captive. They must be immediately and unconsciously released. Accounts of sexual violence during these attacks are appalling, the UN chief added. And stating that the article has not been used for decades, UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric said that the UN chief invoked Article 99 of the founding UN Charter that allows him to bring the matter to the attention of the Security Council.
The Secretary General has today delivered a letter to the President of the Security Council invoking Article 99 of the Charter of the United Nations. This is the first time that Antonio Guterres has done this since he became Secretary General in 2017. Article 99 states, and I quote, that the Secretary General may bring to the attention of the Security Council any matter in his opinion that may threaten the maintenance of international peace and security. In the letter, which has been shared with you, the Secretary General urges the members of the Security Council to press to avert a humanitarian catastrophe, and he appeals for a humanitarian ceasefire to be declared.
Meanwhile, the producers of the Nova Music Festival attacked by Hamas on October 7th recreated a venue in Tel Aviv on Wednesday. The exhibition was put up in memory of the hundreds killed that day. As per the Nova Festival producer, the exhibition was designed for the whole world to see what happened at the Israeli festival. The exhibition included tents, toilets and sound equipment recovered from the scene of the attack. And now shifting focus to Russia-Ukraine war, powerful explosion rocked the industrial district of the Russian-controlled Donetsk city, setting an oil depot ablaze on Wednesday. The Russian-backed city authorities haven't commented on the incident. Also, there was no immediate response from Ukraine. Ukrainian troops continue to hold positions on the outskirts of Donetsk, and it regularly comes under artillery fire. Well, U.S. President Joe Biden pleaded with Republicans for a fresh infusion of military aid for Ukraine on Wednesday, warning that a victory for Russia over Ukraine would leave Moscow in position to attack NATO allies.
Well, Congress and Republicans in Congress are willing to give Putin the greatest gift he could hope for and abandon our global leadership, not just Ukraine, but beyond that. We've all seen the brutality that Putin has inflicted on Ukraine, invading another country, trying to subjugate his neighbors to his iron rule. If Putin takes Ukraine, he won't stop there. It's important to see the long run here. He's going to keep going. He's made that pretty clear. If Putin attacks a NATO ally, if he keeps going, and then he attacks a NATO ally, well, we've committed as a NATO member that we defend every inch of NATO territory.
Also, U.S. President Joe Biden and leaders of the group of 7 countries met virtually with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Wednesday. They all agreed to a new ban on Russian diamonds. As per the joint statement, the countries will ban non-industrial diamonds from Russia by January under the new measures. The Russian diamonds sold by third countries will also be banned from March. The leaders also plan to impose more sanctions to enforce a price cap on Russian oil. Well, U.S. National Security spokesman John Kirby said the U.S. continues to watch the burgeoning defense relationship between Iran and Russia. He added Iran is a threat to the security in the Middle East.
The only thing I'd add is that, we're continuing to watch this burgeoning defense relationship between Iran and Russia. That's worrisome because Iran continues to provide drones to Mr. Putin, who uses those drones to attack energy infrastructure and kill innocent Ukrainians. And what the Iranians are expecting in return is a measure of defense industrial support as well. And in Iran, that has more advanced capabilities and availability to get their hands on Russian weapons, that's not an Iran that's healthy for the security environment in the Middle East.
And U.S. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson met with Britain's Foreign Minister David Cameron on Capitol Hill on Wednesday. The Republican leader of the U.S. House of Representatives has urged for more information on Ukraine's strategy and immigration policy changes amid a week-long impasse over Kyiv's security assistance. Cameron was expected to reaffirm both the strength of Britain's relationship with Washington and London's continued support for Ukraine. And the United States Department of Justice has filed charges against 4 Russian individuals for war crimes connected to an assault on an American resident in Ukraine in 2022. FBI director expresses deep concern over human suffering in Ukraine due to Russia conflict, vows to ensure war criminals face justice. DD India's correspondent Caroline Malone provides more details from Washington.
It's the first time the US government has used a decades-old law to prosecute people who've committed war crimes against US citizens. They've charged 4 Russians, 2 military commanders and 2 soldiers, with unlawful confinement, conspiracy to commit war crimes, inhuman treatment and torture. The Russians allegedly kidnapped the American, beat him, forced him to do labour and threatened sexual assault and even death. While a full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine began in February 2022, the United Nations says more than 10,000 civilians have been killed in the fighting and many others have been injured. The US citizen in this case has not been named, but the indictment says he was living in Ukraine with his wife and not fighting in the war, and therefore is protected under the Geneva Convention. If convicted, the Russians face a maximum penalty of life in prison, although it's not clear if they would ever appear in a US court. US Attorney General Merrick Garland says it's an important step towards accountability for the illegal war in Ukraine. Caroline Malone in Washington for DD India.
Well, Russian President Putin made significant visits to the UAE and Saudi Arabia, strengthening ties and defying Western isolation. Oil cooperation and the Israel-Hamas conflict were the key topics. DD India's correspondent Dasha Chernyshyova shares more details from Moscow.
As the Russian president made a rare overseas visit, his first stop was in the United Arab Emirates. Putin said the relations between Russia and the UAE have come to an unprecedentedly high level as he met with the UAE President Mohammed Al Nahyan in Abu Dhabi. Putin said that the UAE has become Russia's largest trading partner in the Arab world. Over the past year, he said trade turnover increased by around 70%. Putin also invited the UAE president to the BRICS summit in Kazan next year. Escorted by his fighter jets, Putin then landed in Saudi Arabia. Opening the talks with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, Putin stressed good relations with Saudi Arabia in all spheres, including the economy. The situation in the conflict areas has been on the agenda of the 2 meetings, the conflicts in the Middle East and in Ukraine. The Kremlin has also said that energy cooperation is on the agenda, as well as broader issues such as ensuring stability in the Gulf. Moscow says these contacts are very important and timely. Dasha Chernyshyova reporting in Moscow for DD India.
And Russian President Vladimir Putin and Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman discussed further cooperation on oil prices on Wednesday as members of OPEC+. A Saudi account of the meeting said the Crown Prince praised joint coordination between the 2 countries that helped remove tensions in the Middle East. Putin and the Crown Prince, de facto ruler of the world's largest crude exporter, had the hastily arranged talk hours after the Kremlin leader visited Saudi Arabia's Gulf neighbor, the UAE. Kremlin spokesperson quoted by Russian news agencies said cooperation would continue within OPEC+, which includes the OPEC and allies led by Russia. The meeting took place after a fall in oil prices despite an OPEC+ pledge to cut output further. Putin, who was rarely left Russia since sending troops into Ukraine in February 2022, had also been expected to discuss Ukraine and the conflict in Gaza. Well, Putin's visit comes after OPEC+ agreed last Thursday to voluntarily supply cuts totaling about 2.2 million barrels a day, included an extension of existing Saudi and Russian voluntary cuts of 1.3 million BPD. The new announcement was greeted skeptically by the oil market because of doubts as to whether they would be fully implemented. Oil prices fell 2% last week after the OPEC announcement, but Brent crude futures were firmer on Tuesday. Meanwhile, Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi is set to hold talks with Russian President at the Kremlin following Putin's recent visits to the 2 Gulf countries. Earlier this fall, Russia's top diplomat and military chief visited Iran. The West has accused Iran of supporting Russia's war in Ukraine by supplying drones and other weaponry. Kremlin has denied these allegations. DD India correspondent Dasha Chernyshyova provides more details from Moscow.
Russian President Vladimir Putin is to host Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi in Moscow on Thursday. The talks will focus on trade and economic cooperation, including in the energy sector, according to the Kremlin. During this working visit by the Iranian president, the sides will also exchange views on major international and regional issues. According to the Iranian media, a high-ranking economic and political delegation is to accompany President Raisi during his visit to Moscow. Raisi's visit comes a day after Putin traveled to the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia for talks on energy and regional politics. Putin and Raisi last held a phone conversation in October, raising concerns about the conflict between Israel and Hamas. And the Iranian media also say that humanitarian situation in Gaza will also be on the agenda of Thursday talks in Moscow. Dasha Cherneshova reporting in Moscow for DD India.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. UK Immigration Minister resigns over strong disagreements on Rwanda policy. Donald Trump barred from speaking publicly about court staff in his civil fraud trial. We tell you the details ahead. And NASA is celebrating 25 years of the International Space Station's operations.
In a world that never stops, where information shapes our reality, one app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis, and more. Stay informed wherever you are. Real-time alerts keep you ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge, insights, and
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lepakshi Kuran, and moving on. In the U.S., a shooting on the main campus of the University of Nevada, Las Vegas on Wednesday left at least 3 people dead before the bloodshed ended with the suspect's own death. The Las Vegas Police Department said the 3 people, aside from the shooter, were killed. Another person who was shot is in critical condition. Authorities have not identified the victims. It also remained unclear whether the suspect was shot dead by police or committed suicide. Official details of the incident remained sketchy. Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department sheriff said there was no longer any threat to the community, but the main UNLV campus and other branches of the university were being closed for the day out of an abundance of caution.
I will tell you that this combined police, state, local, and federal law enforcement, along with the fire department, worked very well. As the chief told you, we do have one suspect down. Of course, we have no idea on the motive. There are a number of victims that have been transported to area hospitals, so I don't want to give you false information and tell you how many victims that we have, but we will be providing that update very, very shortly.
Well, the New York Attorney General's office has said that Donald Trump should remain barred from speaking publicly about court staff in a civil fraud trial. The judge overseeing the case, Justice Arthur Engoron, issued the gag order on October 3rd after the former U.S. president shared on social media a photo of the judge's law clerk posing with U.S. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, a Democrat, and falsely called her Schumer's girlfriend. Engoron in November extended the order, barring the party's lawyers from commenting on the clerk's communication with the court. Trump last month appealed, arguing the orders violated his constitutional right to free speech. A judge at the mid-level state appeals court paused the orders on November 16th, but a full panel reinstated them 2 weeks later. And former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley was the subject of repeated attacks during the opening moments of Wednesday's Republican presidential debate as Florida Governor Ron DeSantis sought to blunt her momentum just weeks before the party's first nominating contest in Iowa. The two rivals are vying to emerge as the chief alternative to the absent former President Donald Trump, who has maintained a commanding lead in the opinion polls ahead of Iowa's Jan 15th contest. DeSantis boasted about legislation he has passed in Florida banning gender-affirming medical care for transgender youth and accused Haley of opposing the law, an assertion Haley denies. Former tech entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy and former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie also took the debate stage in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, but all eyes were on DeSantis and Haley as the narrowing Republican field runs short on time to derail Trump's march to the 2024 nomination. As with the first three debates, the former president, leading by more than 40 percentage points in most opinion polls, skipped Wednesday's event, instead attending a fundraiser in his home state of Florida. An ousted U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has said that he will leave Congress at the end of this year, a move that raised anxieties among his fellow Republicans about the path that lies ahead for their narrow and fractious majority. His move came as Congress struggles to move forward on a raft of critically important legislation, including fiscal 2024 spending bills that Congress must adopt by January 19th to avert a partial government shutdown. The task poses a new and perilous test for McCarthy's successor, House Representative Speaker Mike Johnson, a Christian conservative with relatively little leadership experience, who won the gavel after weeks of bitter Republican infighting. Well, Britain's Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick has resigned after the UK government published draft emergency legislation aimed at getting its Rwandan migrant deportation scheme up and running. According to the media reports, Jenrick quit after Prime Minister Rishi Sunak rejected his demands to opt out of European human rights laws. The Safety of Rwanda bill, published the day after Britain signed a new treaty with Rwanda, is designed to overcome a ruling by the UK Supreme Court that the government's proposed scheme to send thousands of asylum seekers to the East African country was unlawful. Well, the presidents of the European Council and European Commission will travel to Beijing on Thursday for the 24th EU-China summit. The summit will be the first in-person meeting the two presidents have held with Chinese President Xi Jinping in 4 years. DD India's correspondent Alex Cardia reports for more from Brussels.
Ursula von der Leyen and Charles Michel will try to strike a delicate balance in their meetings with Chinese leaders. On the one hand, they plan to raise a number of thorny issues on which the EU and China have not seen eye to eye. On the other, they recognise that trade with China is a lifeline for the European Union. According to EU officials, the two presidents will urge China to use its influence over Russia to end that country's invasion of Ukraine and to help close loopholes that have allowed Russia to avoid European sanctions. Both President Michel and von der Leyen have separately and repeatedly raised this point with President Xi in past meetings. On geopolitics, the EU leaders will warn against any escalation in the South China Sea or around Taiwan. They'll also urge China to provide more aid to the civilian population in Gaza. Geopolitical tensions between the two sides have also impacted their vital trading relationship, with China and the EU rolling out strategies to reduce their dependence on each other. And trade will almost certainly be a key topic between the leaders, with European and Chinese businesses looking on, hoping for an improvement in that relationship. The Chinese government, for its part, has said it seeks to deepen ties with the European Union. Foreign Minister Wang Yi said that only by adhering to communication and coordination can the EU and China play a constructive role in maintaining world peace and stability and addressing global challenges. The EU has also recognized that all hope is not lost. They highlight the two sides have worked well on vital issues such as climate change and protecting biodiversity. In any case, EU officials don't expect any major breakthroughs at this summit. What they do say is that with the stakes so high, having the summit in the first place is a positive step forward. Alex Cardia in Brussels reporting for DD India.
And the United States on Wednesday formally determined that warring parties in Sudan committed war crimes. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said as Washington increases pressure on the army and paramilitary rapid support forces to end fighting that has caused a humanitarian crisis. Blinken in a statement said Washington also determined that the RSF and allied militias committed crimes against humanity and ethnic cleansing. The fighting, which broke out in mid-April, has displaced more than 6.5 million inside and outside Sudan, killed killed more than 10,000 and decimated the economy. Antony Blinken called on the parties to stop this conflict now, comply with their obligations under international humanitarian and human rights law, and hold accountable those responsible for atrocities. The RSF has been accused of leading an ethnic massacre in West Darfur, and in the capital Khartoum, residents have accused the paramilitary force of looting, rape and imprisoning civilians. Well, former Peruvian President Alberto Fujimori, who was serving a 25-year prison term for human rights abuses, was released on Wednesday evening. The release followed Peru's highest court restoring a contentious 2017 pardon on humanitarian grounds, despite criticisms from the Inter-American Court of Human Rights and victims' families. Fujimori, 85, was seen leaving prison on the outskirts of Peru's capital, Lima. And the U.S. Food and Drug Administration is expected to approve the first ever gene editing treatment for sickle cell disease at a meeting on December 8th. SCD is a debilitating blood disorder affecting more than 20 million worldwide, and it is widespread among the tribal population in India. The treatment could be transformative, a cure some say, but as DD India's correspondent Toti Waterman explains, even if the life-saving therapy is approved, it's likely to remain out of reach for many.
Then what the boys gonna eat?
On this day, Ariel Denman is the picture of perfect health. Laughing with her fiance in their kitchen, discussing the mundane, like what to make the kids for dinner or whether Krispy Kreme donuts are too sweet.
They're too sweet. And if I say it's too sweet, you know, so real.
Ariel doesn't take moments like these for granted. Diagnosed with sickle cell disease as a baby, it was never guaranteed that she'd make it to adulthood. Even now, she can spend weeks in the hospital trying to get her flare-ups under control.
I had an older brother that had sickle cell. He passed away in 2013 from complications from it. So I was afraid I wasn't gonna make it to 26 because that was like the age that he had passed away at. I was afraid, like that was my #1 fear, but I am 33, so I'm just trying to make it to 35 now. Look, that's the next goal, that's the next goal.
Ariel is just one of the estimated 20 million people worldwide suffering from SCD, an inherited blood disorder that causes normally disc-like red blood cells to turn sickle or C-shaped. The cells clump, reducing oxygen flow in the body, which can lead to organ failure, stroke, and excruciating pain. The disease is widespread among India's tribal communities. According to the Ministry of Tribal Affairs, about 1 in 86 births among scheduled tribes have SCD. Much of the disease concentrated in the Deccan Plateau of central India. About a quarter of those with the disease never make it to their second birthday. Yet treatment options globally have been limited for decades.
It's not at all at the global stage a rare condition. It's a condition that has been neglected for 112 years, and it is about time that policy, science, and medical care focus on that condition.
Now, a new breakthrough gene editing treatment offers the promise of a cure for those suffering the worst effects of the disease. The treatment permanently alters a patient's DNA, cutting out the gene mutation that causes SCD. The revised cells are then infused back into the patient's body, where they multiply. In clinical trials, many patients said their symptoms were completely eliminated. Last month, the UK became the first to approve the treatment, but there are concerns it will be too expensive and require expertise to administer, making it inaccessible to most, especially in developing nations like Africa and India.
A medication that is 1.5 million potentially from one treatment, even in America, is not equitable. And then approving it will give an impetus for both the researcher, for the funders, and a hope for patients that we can make that treatment very much equitable in future.
Experts say major investment is required to improve the machinery of gene editing itself, to make the process easier, reduce costs, and limit the side effects.
My youngest, he did that.
Still, Ariel Denman sees it as a first step towards a real, accessible cure for everyone. So moms like her
It's a memory of like how small they were, and then when they get older, you're gonna be like,
can see their children grow from little boys to men. Tony Waterman in Austin, Texas, reporting for DD India.
And now let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen on Wednesday announced new sanctions against 15 individuals and 2 Mexican companies linked to the Beltran-Leyva drugs cartel. The new sanctions come into crackdown on the illicit financial network supporting the cartels and drug traffickers that help funnel the drug into the United States. Yellen describes Beltran as one of the most powerful drug trafficking organizations in the world and a major supplier of cocaine and now fentanyl to the U.S. Authorities in Colombia and Brazil have destroyed 19 illegal gold mining sites and equipment in the Amazon rainforest as part of joint efforts with Brazil to crack down on gold mines in the area. The blown-up illegal mining site were responsible for producing about $1.5 million of the precious metal a month and contaminating rivers with around 100,000 grams of mercury per month. Chilean government on Wednesday confirmed the death of 3 Argentine climbers who went missing last week on Marmolejo Mountain in the Chilean Andes. The bodies, found at an altitude of 5,600 meters, had previously been spotted by a private helicopter involved in the search for the climbers. NASA on Wednesday celebrated 25 years of the International Space Station's operations. The first 2 modules of the ISS, named Zaira and Unity, were joined together in 1998. NASA Associate Administrator Bob Cabana and ISS's Program Manager Joel Montalbano spoke to the 7 members of the Expedition 70 crew aboard the station to mark the occasion. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Google's highly anticipated AI model Gemini, introduced with much anticipation, we brace you with its features ahead. And pop star Taylor Swift is Time's 2023 Person of the Year. Well, Garba proudly placed as India's 15th element on UNESCO's representative list of intangible cultural heritage.
India that invents. India that innovates. India that excites. India that invites. Land of possibility. Teeming with opportunities. Watch India Ideas each Thursday, 8 p.m. only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and time now for a quick recap of the headlines. Israel approves minimal fuel entry increase for Gaza as it slams UN chief for invoking rare Article 99 of UN Charter. Ukraine and Israel aid bill blocked in the US Senate as Republicans demand tougher border control measures. Las Vegas campus shooting leaves 3 dead, 1 in critical condition. Bloodshed ends with suspect's own death. And in sports, India squares off with Spain in FIH Men's Hockey Junior World Cup 2023. Back home, the winter session of Indian Parliament, which is currently underway, will again convene today in capital New Delhi. In Lok Sabha, which is the lower house, supplementary demands of grants for 2023-24 and demands of additional grants for 2020-21 will be taken up for discussion and passage. The lower house will also discuss the Central Universities Amendment Bill 2023. In the Rajya Sabha, that is the upper house, ongoing short-term discussion on economic situation in the country will continue today. Jammu and Kashmir Reservation Amendment Bill 2023 and Jammu and Kashmir Reorganisation Amendment Bill 2023 have also been listed for discussion and passage. Both bills have already been passed by the Lok Sabha. Later in the day, Minister for Law and Justice Arjun Ram Meghwal will place the Repeal and Amendment Bill 2023 in the House. And for more on this, we are joined by correspondent Vikas Sarthi. Well, Vikas, two important bills on J&K passed by Lok Sabha yesterday. Can you tell us the details?
Right, Lepakshi. So these two bills are very important for Jammu and Kashmir. And in fact, yesterday we saw Home Minister Amit Shah gave a detailed reply on the discussion on these two bills. The bill was taken up for consideration a day before yesterday. And yesterday, Home Minister gave a detailed reply and the reasons why these bills have been brought at this point in time. He said that we will ensure that all communities, all people of Jammu and Kashmir gets a proper representative in their legislative assembly. And he, in fact, attacked the opposition, particularly the Congress party. Whatever has been done in the valley for last 70 years, he blamed it on National Conference, PDP and Congress in particular, that because of their partisan politics, people in valley have to suffer so much. In fact, he also mentioned that for since independence, there was a huge number of people who were not given, forget the representation in the assembly, they were not even given the right to vote. So he attacked opposition MPs for doubting the intention of government for bringing these bills at this point in time. And he said that this will ensure that people who were subject to injustice for decades now will get their proper share in the assembly. And there is a large number of people who didn't have right to vote. They have been given right to vote in the valley. So these bills have been passed by the Lok Sabha, and today in the Rajya Sabha we will see the similar kind of debate which we have witnessed in the lower house.
Also, what all is expected today in the Lok Sabha?
Right, in the Lok Sabha, just after the discussion on the supplementary demand for grants and the additional demand of grants for 2021, later in the day we will see discussion on Central Universities Amendment Act. This bill is also being discussed in the Lok Sabha. Since yesterday, the bill is related to setting up the first tribal university in Telangana. But during the course of discussion, the other issues, other than the setting up of this particular university, issues related to Ministry of Education have also been brought by several Member of Parliaments. Now, today we expect that bill will be passed in the Lok Sabha. And before that, Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan will also give a detailed reply on each and every aspect which have been raised by the Member of Parliaments yesterday and today also.
Well, thank you so much for updating us on that, Vikas. And moving on, India is observing 74th Armed Forces Flag Day on December 7th. The day serves as a tribute to the martyrs and the brave men in uniform who valiantly defend India's borders, preserving the honor of nation. Flag Day emphasizes India's commitment to caring for its war-disabled soldiers, Veer Naris, the brave women, and the families of martyrs who make the ultimate sacrifice for the country. The day has been observed annually since 1949. And the Western Indian state of Gujarat's Garba dance form achieves a momentous milestone by securing a position on UNESCO's representative list of intangible cultural heritage. Garba is a cultural tradition embodying celebration, devotion, gender inclusivity, and social equality. It transcends borders, becoming India's 15th element to receive such distinguished acknowledgement. Garba presents India's abundant cultural, traditional, and heritage treasures to the global stage. Take a look.
Garba has gone global. The dance form, which originates from India's western state of Gujarat, is now part of UNESCO's representative list of intangible cultural heritage of humanity. Garba is a devotional dance which is performed at all joyous occasions. The decision to include it in UNESCO's representative list of intangible cultural heritage of humanity was taken during the 18th Intergovernmental Committee meet in Botswana. Garba is the 15th ICH element from India to become part of the list. Durga Puja, Kumbh Mela, Chow Dance, Kalbelia and more have already become part of this ICH list. Garba has devotional and ritualistic roots. It's specially performed during Navratri, a 9-day Hindu festival worshipping goddess Durga or Shakti. Several member states congratulated India on this achievement. To mark the occasion, a troupe of dancers from the Indian Council for Cultural Relations showcased the dance form at the meeting venue. And in India, the Gujarat government is now organizing several Garba events in different districts to celebrate this milestone. Tanvi Taneja for DD India.
Also, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi hailed the recognition of Garba dance as a UNESCO intangible cultural heritage. In a post on social media platform X, he said, and I quote, "Garba is a celebration of life, unity and our deep-rooted traditions. Its inscription on the intangible heritage list showcases to the world the beauty of Indian culture. This honor inspires us to preserve and promote our heritage for future generations. Congrats for this global acknowledgement," unquote. And after 2 days of academic rigor, delegates of the Knowledge India Visitors Programme got an opportunity to explore the national capital, New Delhi, on Wednesday. They visited the popular tourist spot of Delhi Hat. Delhi Hat is a hub of culture and crafts in the national capital. The delegates shared their experience of engaging with Indian culture and studies.
As far as the 21st century geopolitical situation, there's the rise of Asia. And in my own field, which is philosophy and theology, I think there's going to be a rise of the importance of Indian thought. Particularly, I'm working on the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavata Purana, and I think these will occupy more interesting, a more central place in world thought.
And moving on, India's Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra program is going on in the Anantapuram district of the Indian state of Andhra Pradesh. Short films of the schemes implemented by the central government were shown to the public through a campaign vehicle in M. Cherupalli village. Similarly, officials of the respective departments explained to the people about the central government schemes. And now let's take a look at other stories making news today. Cyclone Migjom has weakened into a deep depression over central coast of India's Andhra Pradesh, but it has caused floods in many parts of the state with damage to life and property. Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh is also scheduled to visit Chennai today to take a review of the relief work being carried out by various agencies. As part of the Indo-US joint exercise Vajra Prahar 2023, the Indian Air Force along with Indian Army conducted various exercises with US troops in an Mi-17 helicopter at Umiam Lake, Shillong. Helicasting operations were also carried out, displaying high standards of precision, synergy and professionalism. Indian Health Minister Dr. Mansukh Mandavia launches nationwide public awareness campaign on cardiopulmonary resuscitation awareness program by NBEMS. More than 20 lakh people participated in the CPR training across the nation. This is the first CPR awareness program in the country that has been conducted on a national level. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Ravi Bishnoi tops ICC T20 International Bowling chart. AI industry experts gather in New York City to forecast the industry's trajectory. And promoting viewership of Indian movies among his Nigerian tribe mates. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lepakshi Kuranan. On to business news now. News just coming in that European Union countries and lawmakers have agreed on rules governing artificial intelligence systems such as ChatGPT after 10 hours of discussions, a person with direct knowledge of the talks said on Thursday. According to the source, EU governments made compromises in the hopes of gaining lawmakers' backing to be able to use AI in biometric surveillance for national security, defense and military purposes. The talks were started on Wednesday, continuing with the focus on the use of biometric surveillance, which lawmakers want to ban. Also, Alphabet on Wednesday introduced its most advanced artificial intelligence model, a technology capable of crunching different forms of information such as video, audio and the text. Called Gemini, the Google owner's highly anticipated AI model is capable of more sophisticated reasoning and understanding information with a greater degree of nuance than Google's prior technology. It will be integrated into Bard as well as the latest Pixel 8 Pro smartphones. Underlining Gemini's state-of-the-art performance across many leading benchmarks, Google CEO Sundar Pichai said Gemini 1.0 is optimized for different sizes, Ultra, Pro and Nano. Well, AI industry experts are gathering in New York City today for the 8th annual AI Summit to forecast the industry's trajectory. The summit, spanning 2 days, unites knowledge-leading policymakers and corporate executives for discourse and workshops. Amid a global push for tech regulation, it assumes significance. DD India's Sally Patterson reports for more.
It's an opportunity to rub shoulders with some of the biggest names in AI. Representatives from technology companies, financial institutes and governments are set to hold talks and then stick around for networking afterwards. Tech giants including Microsoft, OpenAI and Google are all on the bill. Organisers say the summit, held on December 6th and 7th, will showcase how businesses are implementing and financing AI in a rapidly changing world. It comes just over a month after the UK held a major AI safety summit, looking at the risks of the economy and the industry. World leaders around the world are grappling with how to regulate it. In New York this week, the risks of AI will once again be in focus, tackling bias in technology, for example, but also opportunities for healthcare, finance, security, and more. Through speaker events, workshops, and feedback sessions, it's designed to be a very hands-on event. It promises to upskill employees through interactive and in-depth training sessions. And it is certainly an investment, with delegate tickets costing $2,400. Sally Patterson in New York, reporting for DD India.
And more updates from the business world as the U.S. stocks ended down on Wednesday as signs of a cooling jobs market reinforced expectations that the Federal Reserve could start cutting interest rates early next year. The latest employment data showing private payrolls increased by 103,000 jobs in November. That was below economist expectation of 130,000, showing fresh evidence of labor market weakness. The latest employment data reinforced expectations that the Fed's rate hike campaign is cooling the economy. The data showed S&P 500 declined 0.39%, while the Nasdaq declined 0.58%, whereas Dow Jones Industrial Average declined by 0.19%. And Asian shares also slipped with Wall Street on Thursday, while sharp fall in oil prices to a 5-month low promised to further reduce inflationary pressures and help to boost the global bond market. MSCI's broadest index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan dipped 0.5%, while Japan's Nikkei fell 1.3%. China's blue chips eased 0.4%, whereas Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index fell 0.7%. And on to sports news now, India takes on Spain in the second Pool C match of the Junior Men's Hockey World Cup on Thursday. India overcame South Korea in the opening match by 4-2 after vice-captain Arijit Singh Handal scored a hat-trick. But India's coach C.R. Kumar was not satisfied with the performance and said the team needs to be more clinical and avoid conceding unnecessary penalty corners. India conceded 6 penalty corners while he earned just 2 against Korea. But India will start as favourites against Spain due to current current form of the players, the Spaniards are India's toughest opponent in the pool that also includes Canada. They won a bronze medal at the 2005 edition. India had clinched a silver medal way back in 1997 in England. India's last pool match is against Canada on Saturday. And England women trounced India by 38 runs in the first T20 international of the three-match series in Mumbai. Danielle Wyatt and Natalie Skevier-Brunt hit half-centuries and raised a 138-run partnership to set up the victory. Batting first, England scored 197 for 6, which was their second highest T20 international total against India, despite an impressive 3-wicket haul by Renuka Singh. In reply, opener Shefali Verma smashed a 42-ball 52, but the hosts were never really in command and finished on 159 for 6. India got off to a sparkling start as Mahika Gaur plundered 12 runs in the first over and Lauren Bell leaked 8. But England brought Skevier-Brunt into the attack and the star all-rounder dismissed Smriti Mandhana. Jemima Rodrigues fell 3 overs later and it seemed England would march towards a big win. But skipper Harmanpreet Kaur joined Shefali at the crease and they batted aggressively to add 41 runs off 31 balls. And as per the latest ICC rankings, Indian leg spinner Ravi Bishnoi becomes world's #1 T20 international bowler, replacing Rashid Khan. Bishnoi reached the top spot in the ICC T20 international bowling chart due to his stunning performance against Australia. The 23-year-old was declared player of the series as he took 9 wickets from 5 games. Bishnoi was India's go-to bowler in the just concluded T20 international series. Bishnoi has jumped 5 places to dethrone Afghanistan spinner Rashid Khan from the top slot. Sri Lankan spinner Vanindu Hasaranga and England's Adil Rashid are joint third. And coach Carlos Queiroz has ended his association with Qatar's national team less than a year after inking a 4-year contract. The decision came a month ahead of next edition of the Asian Cup, which will be hosted by the Gulf state. The former Real Madrid and Portugal head coach took over the reins of the team with Felix Sanchez in February after the Qataris hosted last year's World Cup finals. He was charged with qualifying the Gulf state for the 2026 tournament. Qatar won their first Asian Cup title under Sanchez in 2019, and the country is due to defend the trophy on home soil next month. Queiroz oversaw wins over Afghanistan and India in November in the second round of Asia's preliminaries for the next World Cup. And after launching a record-shattering global tour and becoming the world's most streamed musical artist in 2023, Taylor Swift notched yet another accolade on Wednesday when Time magazine named her as the Person of the Year. Swift took the award in a year when her nearly 2 decades of fame and influence came to a peak, the magazine said in announcing the title. She's become the first person from the arts to be honored for her success as an entertainer.
And that adventure is going to span 17 years.
And a Nigerian man is promoting viewership of Indian movies among his tribe mates. Jubril Yunus says the storylines, dress and culture are admired by the Hausa people. DD India's correspondent Tasim Akende reports from Jos.
Seated with rapt attention, these young people in northern Nigeria are watching an Indian movie. They can neither read English subtitles nor understand Hindi. But this movie and many other Indian TV shows are attracting a lot of viewership because Jubril Yunus has taken it upon himself to translate them into the Hausa language, common in the northern part of the country.
Each of the movies comes with a script and subtitles for each word. That's what I use for the translation. India has Hindi and other languages. Once you understand a bit of it, especially Hindi, you are good, and I do.
Viewers at this local cinema say it is a fulfilling experience to watch and understand.
There is a special attachment I now have to Indian movies, hearing it in Hausa. The people dress so well, lots of similarities between them and us here in northern Nigeria.
India's movie industry, Bollywood, according to Statista, has grown over the years and is estimated to be worth around $2.8 billion. In 2020, Nigeria's Minister of Information and Culture said collaboration between the country and India in the creative industry is yielding results, with the launch of an all-Nigerian Indian cast movie. Analysts are seeking increased collaboration between both industries for more movies to be translated into local languages in Nigeria the right way.
I'm sure the translations are not perfect because only the movie makers can effectively translate the intended meanings. Or at least they should supervise whatever efforts people are putting into translating them. They should be considering that because it will also lead to the creation of jobs.
Nigeria's Ministry of Information says it is making the move. It says it has offered land to Indian investors for the construction of a film city in Nigeria's capital Abuja or the commercial center Lagos. Such efforts are expected to result in the making of Indian movies in Nigeria, but also to strengthen collaboration between Bollywood and Nollywood. Tassim Akendi in Jos, reporting for DD India.
Well, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.